This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast brought to you by Agriland and AXA, keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined by Francess McDonnell, Kathleen O'Sullivan and Agriland dairy specialist Hugh Harney. Well, a lot of talk recently has been about the impending deadline set by US President Donald Trump for the onset of a higher rate of tariffs on exports from the EU to the US, something that the Irish agri-sector, especially the dairy and drinks sectors, are quite concerned about. A 90-day pause set by President Trump on the higher rate of tariffs is set to end on July 9th, that's next Wednesday. And this week, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, Simon Harris, hosted a meeting of the Government Trade Forum on that issue. Over the course of the next few days, we will no doubt be returning to that story on Agriland, but we're going to start today by talking about the news from this week, and that is the latest monitoring report from the EPA on nitrogen and phosphorus concentrations in Irish water. These reports from the EPA are potentially very influential in terms of Ireland's aim to retain the nitrates derogation. So Kathleen, can you take us through the details of this report?
So this latest water quality monitoring report from the EPA has cautioned that nitrate concentrations remain too high in many parts of the country. The report highlighted that while there has been a very welcome recent improvement in nitrogen concentrations in Irish rivers, nutrient losses to water need to be further reduced to deliver improvements in ecological status and to achieve the Water Framework Directive objectives. According to the EPA, nutrient losses from agriculture are one of the significant drivers for waters not meeting their environmental objectives under the directive. The EPA said the most recent ecological status assessment, which covered the period 2016 to 2021, indicates that just over half of Irish rivers and lakes and only 36% of estuaries were in satisfactory ecological health, and overall water quality was in decline. The report published this week shows that overall nitrogen levels in rivers have reduced nationally in 2024 compared to 2023. According to the EPA, there was a 10% national reduction in river nitrate concentrations during 2024, with reductions observed in all regions. But overall, nitrate concentrations in the southeast and Midlands and eastern regions remain too high. There has been an 8% reduction in nitrate concentrations in groundwater in the southeast region, although groundwater nitrate concentrations have not reduced in other regions. Lake nitrate concentrations have also reduced, but there has been a 2% increase in the number of estuarine and coastal waters exceeding the good status environmental quality standard for marine waters. The EPA did say that marine waters can take longer than rivers to respond to changes in nutrient levels, and it said it is expected that it may take a few years before the reductions seen in rivers last year are reflected in the downstream marine waters. According to the EPA, phosphorus concentrations in rivers are stable, with no significant change in the last year. Phosphorus concentrations in rivers exceeded the good status environmental quality standard in 21% of rivers, typically in areas associated with poorly draining soils. Elevated phosphorus concentrations are impacting the ecological health of these rivers and may be contributing to nutrient enrichment in the downstream estuaries, the EPA warned. So all of these findings are really important. This report provides an update on the results of water quality monitoring to support the assessment of the impact of the nitrates derogation on Irish waters. And of course, Ireland is seeking to retain that derogation after 2025. The EPA has acknowledged that there are significant actions underway by the sector to reduce nutrient losses, and it said that ongoing and sustained actions will be needed to reduce nutrients to satisfactory levels before the ecological health of Irish waters will improve. There has been reaction to the EPA's report this week, with the Irish Farmers Association Environment Chair John Murphy saying that there has been a massive effort in recent years to refine the advice and support to farmers so they'd better understand the pressures on their local water bodies, to support them to take targeted action to mitigate the risks and improve water quality. However, he said further progress is still needed where nitrate concentrations remain above good ecological thresholds. He said it is vital that farmers are continued to be supported in their efforts to deliver water quality improvements. Dr. Elaine McGough, Head of Advocacy with Antashka, said that any improvement in water quality is clearly welcome, but when it comes to nitrogen pollution, the south and southeast is where it is a really serious ongoing concern, she said. She also said that clear evidence is needed that the measures being put in place by farmers are effective for adequately preventing agricultural nitrogen pollution.
Thanks, Kathleen. And just before we move on from the EPA, that wasn't the only report from the environmental body published this week. The EPA also published a report on drinking water quality in Ireland, and if you want to check out that story, you can do so on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app. But moving on now, and there was a significant blow this week for the live trade, with Stena Line making a big announcement. Frances, can you tell us more about this?
Yes, Charles, the issue of live exports has been on the agenda both at home and in Europe this year. And whilst we've been waiting for further details from the European Commission on live exports, we weren't really expecting to have this announcement from ferry operator Stena Line, who has confirmed that it will withdraw its existing 3-day Rosslare to Cherbourg service. The decision will come as a significant blow to Irish-based calf exporters who depend on the service to get a large volume of calves to key markets in mainland Europe. The ferry route is also used to transport significant numbers of other livestock to mainland Europe, including weanlings, older cattle and horses. Stena Line's vessel on this route is approved by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine to carry up to 15 livestock vehicles. Now, Stena said that following a strategic route review, the last sailing will depart from Cherbourg on September 29th, arriving in Rosslare on September 30. The company has said that its plans have been developed after an extensive review with the intention of strengthening the company's investment in the Irish Sea whilst delivering the most efficient use of its resources. Now, DAFM has told us that it will engage with other ferry operators in relation to the transport of livestock over the coming weeks. According to the Minister for Agriculture, Food and the Marine, Martin Hayden, Stena has assured his department that over the coming months they will continue to deliver the same high quality service on their Rosslare Cherbourg service, and they will ensure their customers have the support they need to prepare for the change that's coming. According to Minister Hayden, the transport of live animals is a private commercial activity which is regulated by DAFM in accordance with EU and national laws. He said that while the trade is a private commercial activity, his department is ready to assess and approve vehicles that might be made available for transport of livestock on that route. Minister Hayden said that he is acutely aware that the decision by Stena Line has the potential to cause difficulties for industry as a whole, particularly the trade of live animals. Now, he's also highlighted that Brittany Ferries operate a vessel on the Rosslare to Cherbourg route 3 days a week. That's Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. And that vessel is also approved by DAFM to carry a maximum of 9 livestock vehicles. The reaction to the Stena Line decision from farm organisations has been very clear. The Irish Farmers Association warned that the live export trade is an important outlet for Ireland and it's something that has to be safeguarded. It said that Stena's announcement will have an impact on capacity and DAFM's focus should now be on securing the maximum number of sailings for next spring. Meanwhile, the Irish Creamery Milk Suppliers Association has also urged stakeholders to come together to make sure that available replacement services are supported. The ICMSA's key message was that Ireland must retain its route to market.
Now, one of the biggest events in the dairy calendar took place this week, and that was the 2025 Open Day at Teagasc Moorepark, the main centre for dairy research in the country. Hugh, you were down there for Agriland. Can you take us through some of the key takeaway points?
Yeah, Charles. So Moorepark 2025 kicked off yesterday, and the theme of the day was Irish Dairying, innovating for the future. And I suppose the focus of the day was controlling costs and kind of trying to utilise more grass on farm systems. I suppose this was a trend that has kind of went in the wrong direction in the last number of years. So I think that's why they were trying to really, really focus on it. So it was highlighted on the day that the Irish dairy industry has kind of undergone like a remarkable transformation since the abolishment of EU milk quotas in 2015. And I suppose we've kind of entered a period of consolidation since 2022. So I suppose what they were trying to kind of feel out was, what does this mean for Irish dairy farmers? Well, the head of Animal and Grassland Research and Innovation Programme at Teagasc, Lauren Shalhoub, said, quote, "The industry must navigate challenging conditions brought about by changing environmental policies, system creep, variable pasture production, increased reliance on concentrate supplementation, and an economy operating at full employment, all amid ongoing uncertainty in policy and trade conditions." It was also highlighted then that the cost of production has went up by a staggering 50% since 2020, given more reason for us to really utilise more grass in our system. Like last year, homegrown made up about 78% of the cow's diet, when the target for us is about 90%. So there's a lot to do in that space. So I suppose definitely the main thing on today was to focus on reducing costs, reduce your meal input by utilising more grass in the cow's diet. And I suppose looking at how this can be done was, there was a focus on reseeding, incorporating grass clover swards, soil testing, nutrient management planning, effective nutrient application, hitting those grazing targets and maximising the days at grass with better grazing infrastructure and farm layout.
And I believe, Hugh, there were two other topics as well which generated a good bit of discussion. These were generational renewal as well as the Economic Breeding Index, the EBI.
Yes, Charles, that's right. There were two huge topics of discussion. I suppose in terms of the generational renewal part, it was highlighted that less than 5% of farmers are under 35, which is just a staggering figure. And I suppose a few things were highlighted that needed to happen for young people, which was a better work-life balance and a steady income. And that's all what people want. If we want the young people in the industry, they're going to have to see it as a viable industry to get into with a nice work-life balance. Again, Joe Patton said that, quote, "We're 20 years really since the whole process of expanding the industry began. We need new blood into the industry and we need good models for how that would happen." So I suppose the Business of Farming Board then highlighted that we need to create a better work environment. I suppose they were kind of messing with the fact that, like, how can we achieve this? Well, number one, they were pointing out that, farmers need to find a balance between a healthy start and finish time of the day. And how can this be achieved? Well, they were looking at the 16-8 milking interval, which is, 16 hours in the evening, 16 hours between one milking and 8 hours between the next. And then looking at like the likes of relief milkers and making a system that's easy for workers to come in and milk. So, like having your standard operating procedures quite handy for someone that's not familiar with the farm to come in and do. I suppose they were looking also at like investment. So where do you need to invest for like even a short-term improvement? And it's like, invest in soil fertility, infrastructure on your farm, roadways, handling facilities, just little things to make the day-to-day jobs that bit easier, a bit more efficient and safer, of course. And then, like, I suppose, in the long run, saving time, the farmers could start looking at, investing in time-saving technology such as heat detection services or devices, automatic calf feeders, and the likes of bat latches were also highlighted. So it's just little things like that, Charles, that just make that life a bit easier for farmers, that, that they're not stuck to the farm from one end of the day to the next. And that's what the young person wants, along with a steady income. The update in the EBI was also highlighted. So this is to come into effect in September 2025. And I suppose just aimed at reflecting changing input and output prices. The updated version of the EBI will see a change in the genetic base for milk production and fertility. And the base population will move from 2005 to 2007 born cows to 2015 to 2019 boar cows. So like where the EBI before was off that 2005 to 2007 stock. So like, you know, we're 20 years on, a lot has changed. So I suppose, interestingly, it is predicted that the impact of these changes will see all animals' EBI drop approximately €91. The production sub-index is set to drop approximately €41, as milk yield is set to drop back by 74 kilos, fat yield to drop by 7 kilos, and protein yield by 5.6 kilos. The fertility sub-index is also was probably a slight bit overestimated. So now the fertility sub-index is set to drop back by €50, as the survival rate is set to drop by 1.3%, and the calving interval is set to increase by 2.7 days.
Thanks for that, Hugh. And just while we're on dairy, the Global Dairy Trade Index saw its fourth consecutive decrease this week, declining by 4.1%. Not enough perhaps to be of immediate concern to dairy farmers in Ireland, but something to keep an eye on nonetheless. But we'll move on now and talk about bird flu. In recent days, we have seen renewed concerns raised about the possibility of bird flu infiltrating commercial poultry here after a number of detections in wild birds. Can you tell us more, Frances?
You remember, Charles, that previously there was a compulsory housing order in place for poultry and captive birds north and south. That order had been put in place in February to protect birds during what was seen as the higher risk period for avian influenza. The housing order was lifted then in May, but since then there has been intensive surveillance by the National Parks and Wildlife Service, NPWS and other agencies to monitor and see if bird flu remains a threat on the island. And in particular this week we've seen fresh warnings coming from Minister Hayden that there has been bird flu detected in wild seabirds along the west coast. We know that these birds have washed up in shorelines in counties Kerry, Clare and Galway. The tests have been carried out and confirmed the presence of bird flu with the H5N1 strain. It's understood that an estimated 25 wild birds have tested positive for bird flu so far this year. And we know that bird flu viruses are very contagious amongst birds and can survive for several weeks in the environment. So both the HSE and DAFM have issued new advice this week in relation to bird flu, and they're urging people not to touch sick or dead wild birds and not to bring sick or wild birds home. And in particular, pets should also be kept on a leash where sick or dead wild birds are present. DAFM is also appealing to people this week to monitor and also report sick or dead wild birds via its Avian Check app. And in relation to the threat to commercial poultry operators, Minister Martin Hayden has appealed to poultry farmers and flock keepers, specifically in coastal areas in County Kerry, Clare and Galway, regardless of whether they have commercial poultry farms or a few backyard hens, to implement stringent biosecurity measures. He said this will mitigate the risk of the disease spreading to their flocks. According to Martin Hayden, strict biosecurity remains the single most important disease preventing measure that can be applied on the island.
Just before we move on, we'll take this opportunity to bring you another quick animal health update. The Department of Agriculture has warned farmers to be vigilant of the potential for livestock poisoning from yew trees. The department said that these trees are becoming very popular in gardening, but they are extremely toxic to livestock and, for that matter, humans. If livestock ingest discarded clippings of a yew tree, it can kill them in a matter of minutes. So we do recommend you check out that article on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app. But moving on, and we have a further update this week to bring you on the delayed payments under the Agri-Climate Rural Environment Scheme. Frances, we're into July now, and the department is chipping away at this backlog bit by bit. Where are we this week?
Yes, Charles, I think if we got the chance to ask Minister Hayden what's been his biggest headache since he came on board at the department in the role of minister, he would say it's got to be acres. Now, latest DAFM figures actually are quite positive because they show that almost 94% of all of the acres participants are now up to date with payments. According to the latest data published by the department, a total of 512.2 million has now been paid to farmers participating in the agri-environmental scheme. Of that total, almost 263.6 million is in relation to taking part in the scheme in 2024, while just under 248.6 million relates to participation in 2023. Now, the latest data in relation to balancing payments in respect of participation in acres in 2023 shows that payments were made to 19 participants recently, with those payments amounting to nearly 21,000. DAFM said that this brought the total paid in respect of participation in acres in 2023 to just under 248.6 million, and that was paid to 44,186 participants, or almost 99% of all Tranche 1 participants. However, according to DAFM, a total of 514 farmers have yet to receive their final payment for 2023. Of these, 236 have already received an interim payment of either 4,000 or 5,000. And DAFM said that in many instances, this will cover the entire amount of the payment due. Now, we know that department officials are continuing to process cases with payments, and we know that there are specific reasons why some farmers are still waiting for payment. And we know that there are contracts that have to be cleared down still. But just to break it down a little more, according to DAFM, advance payments in respect of participation in the scheme in 2024 now amount to over 1.6 million. And then we know from the latest payment run that brought the total 2024 advance payments to over 225.27 million, and that was paid to 52,394 farmers, or 97% of all acres participants.
We'll move on now and talk about farm safety. And a new action plan backed by the HSA has been launched to promote safety awareness on farms. Can you tell us more, Frances?
Yes, Charles, unfortunately, I think there are very few people in farming whose lives haven't been touched in one way or another by a farm accident. The statistics really do speak for themselves in this case, and in many times they're not very uplifting. We cover a lot of farm-related accidents and fatalities here in Agriland, and we're always very conscious that behind these statistics are the loved ones who have to cope with what has happened. But there is a new initiative which will hopefully help to reverse some of those statistics, and we heard about this week. The Farm Safety Partnership and Advisory Committee to the Health and Safety Authority has launched a new Farm Safety Action Plan from 2025 to 2027. It's aimed at significantly reducing fatalities, injuries and occupational health issues across the agricultural sector. Over the past decade, farming has accounted for approximately 38% of all workplace fatalities in Ireland, despite representing just 11% of the working population. This new action plan has got ambitious goals to tackle what has been identified as persistent safety challenges in the sector, but it also wants to foster a culture of safety and well-being among farmers and agricultural workers. We heard this week from Minister Michael Healy-Rae, who said that while farming is the backbone of the rural economy, too many lives have been lost in accidents on farms. And he's now calling on all farmers to think safety first and not to be complacent when it comes to putting simple measures in place which can minimise the risk of an incident. The interim HSA Chief Executive, Mark Cullen, has said that reducing serious farm incidents and fatalities is a shared responsibility. And he believes this new plan will bring together farmers, policymakers, industry experts and educators to create safer farms for future generations. He wants to build a culture of safety that protects lives and livelihoods. But let me just tell you a little about some of the key areas of focus for the Farm Safety Action Plan 2025 to 2027. And these include promoting cultural and behavioural changes to improve farm safety and health, also protecting vulnerable goods, which includes children, older farmers and migrant workers, and reducing deaths and injuries caused by high hazard activities such as vehicle operation, livestock handling and working at heights. So we hope that that is going to be embraced in the next 12 months by the farming community across the country.
Finally this week, we're going to talk about an issue that often generates controversy, and that is the cutting and maintenance of hedgerows. Hedgerows Ireland, a group that advocates for the protection of hedges, has claimed that there is unnecessary confusion every year on hedge cutting laws. So Frances, what have Hedgerows Ireland been saying on this issue?
Well, Charles, according to the Secretary of Hedgerows Ireland, Alan Moore, there really shouldn't be any confusion about the laws surrounding hedge cutting at this time of year. And just bear with me here for a moment while I get technical. Hedge cutting is prohibited between March 1 and August 31 under Section 40 of the Wildlife Act 1976. But Section 70 of the 1993 Roads Act also states that landowners can trim roadside hedges if visibility is compromised as a matter of public safety. Now, Hedgerows Ireland is appealing to people to take a conservative approach to any necessary roadside hedge cutting during the nesting season. So they want only to be side trimming at this time, and also for contractors and farmers and landowners to delay cutting where visibility is not an issue until after September 1. Hedgerows Ireland said that the hedge cutting restrictions are very straightforward. First of all, a great number of birds nest within hedgerows throughout the summer. And secondly, birds also use them for feeding, as uncut hedges create shelter and provide food for newly hatched chicks. So they don't see why there should be any confusion at this time. But we've also heard this week different calls from industry and politicians which take a completely different view from Hedgerows Ireland. The County Donegal Senator Manus Boyle has warned that rural roads are closing all around the rural counties of Ireland. The Fine Gael Senator said that farmers are brilliant, with 99% of them cutting their hedges when they need to be cut and looking after them well, but he also believes there are some landowners who are not cutting it, and he said many hedges, in his county in particular, need trimming. Separately, road hauliers have also warned that a lack of hedgerow management is causing road traffic accidents on rural roads. According to the Irish Road Haulage Association, overgrown hedges are blocking sightlines at junction and obstructing road signs. The association has urged local authorities to ensure that roadside hedges are cut back, particularly at busy junctions. And if you're in any way confused about the regulations surrounding hedge cutting, you can check out Agriland.ie Explainer, what are the laws around hedge cutting on roads, on our website and on our app for the answers.
Thanks, Frances. And that's where we'll leave it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Frances, Kathleen, Hugh and myself, take care.
This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.